Welcome into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Chris Ballas and Anthony Broom. On a Thursday, we will preview Michigan against Penn State, number 3 versus number 10. We'll also talk about the latest with Jim Harbaugh, his status for Saturday, as well as the Big Ten's potential punishment against Michigan during this alleged off-campus scouting case where they could step in, forego due process. We'll pick some games at the end of the show as well, including Michigan against Penn State. How's it going today, guys?
It's going. Another day, another dollar. Let's do this.
Yeah, we're just another day closer to the sun crashing into the earth and ending everything. So that's your Eat at Arby's update of the day.
I love it. Let's get right into it with Jim Harbaugh's status. Obviously, for those who have been following, Big Ten notified earlier on in the week Michigan of potential punishment. Michigan sent its response yesterday, Wednesday afternoon. 10 pages written from the school, 10 pages from Jim Harbaugh's attorney, Tom Mars, who is, obviously a long track record against the NCAA, but this time against the Big Ten, kind of in a waiting game at this point. If the Big Ten does go forward with some sort of suspension, which has been, reportedly what they were leaning towards at least a couple of days ago, Michigan could still file an injunction or a temporary restraining order for Jim Harbaugh to continue coaching, including getting that done quickly so that he can be on the sideline at Penn State this weekend. We talked about on Monday just the pressure that was put on from these Big Ten coaches, Big Ten presidents, and then they have the meeting with Michigan last week. It feels like in the last couple of days, a little bit more pressure coming the other way, not only from Michigan with their response and putting out some different evidence, against some other teams as well, but some in the media. Dan Wetzel, I thought, wrote a great column yesterday on this. Some in the media other than us, right, have, kind of joined what I would call the side of common sense. So now we wait to see what the Big Ten does. Could they push it off till next week? Could they come out with something later this week? Could it be less than a suspension and just like a fine or something like that? I think all those options are kind of on the table right now.
Yeah, they are. And, as of yesterday, late in the day, Michigan was convinced they have their injunction paperwork ready to go. They were convinced that Jim Harbaugh was facing a long suspension of some sort. And it sounds like once they sent their response, which is 18 total pages, right, between Tom Mars and the Michigan attorneys, and signed by Ward Manuel, they said, okay, well, let's look through this and see what they've got. And really the evidence that they presented verbally in the meeting last Friday did not match the evidence that was on paper that they handed them. And Michigan's like, well, if this is what we're going on, there's no way in hell that we are going to allow for a suspension of Jim Harbaugh before he gets due process or any other punishment. And I would think the exception there might be a fine, right? Okay, our analyst was on the sidelines and taking film and this and that, and if you want to fine us something like that, then maybe that's a place where they come to a mutual agreement. But I don't think they are going to, at this point, according to our sources, barter on any kind of suspension for Jim Harbaugh.
And they shouldn't, because the Big Ten, sorry, pardon my French, kids earmuffs, the Big Ten doesn't have shit. They don't. And everything that's been, their evidence is everything that's been reported. And I get that points to an implication or a root, jumping to conclusions of what those things might be, but there's nowhere near the evidence to levy some kind of suspension against Jim Harbaugh under the sportsmanship rule, which, guys, typically is for, like, if your crowd is throws stuff on the field or your mascot pushes someone on the sideline or something. It's never been applied the way that Tony Petitti and the Big Ten are looking to apply it. So the fact of the matter is that, given that if that's what the Big Ten has, which we assume that it is, because Michigan took the time over the last several days to craft the response letter and all that, again, there might be hell to pay at some point in the eyes of the NCAA, but for Big Ten enforcement, again, I would not accept anything from them right now, because I don't think that there's enough of an awareness of what the commissioner actually is able to act on here and what the schools are calling for. So for me, again, I've said it several times. if Michigan did something, we've all said it. If Michigan is found to have done something wrong, if Jim Harbaugh is found to have done something wrong, they will be punished for it. But that comes after an investigation and letting this process play out. I mean, you can't you can't levy that type of punishment without any sort of adjudication on what type of rules were broken. So to me, I think if I'm Michigan right now, I'm extremely, they're obviously confident. They basically said in their letter, we will probably, if this happens, we will sue you and we will win. And it sounds like they've got the big time attorneys and the power brokers behind them to win that case if it does go to a court. So I think if you're a Michigan fan right now, 5 days after that meeting with Tony Petitti, you probably feel a whole lot better than you did after the initial kind of rumblings coming out of that.
Is it pronounced Petitti or Petiti?
So I heard some Michigan fans were saying just petite.
Yeah, well, that's, neither here nor there. I just want to know the actual pronunciation, if it's Petitti or Petiti.
I believe it's Petiti.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Petitti sounds a lot more fun. So maybe we'll stick with that. So, all right, Clay, what's the next subject before we make our producer blush here?
Yeah, so no, but I agree, AB, with it's like not only like no one's saying that Michigan won't have some sort of punishment at some point. It's just saying that right now there's no reason to punish Jim Harbaugh. Yahoo Sports uncovered the entire Michigan response, and they had these bullet points that were in the Michigan response, which was reflecting what the Big Ten presented to them in terms of evidence. One of them, record of Stallions tickets purchased and transfers. One unsolicited tip by an unidentified person claiming to have witnessed a person in Stallions' seat filming the sideline. A link to a public article that includes a now deleted video of Stallions on the sideline of a Michigan game, which is legal. A short video titled UMass versus PSU video that does not clearly show anything at all, the letter says. And then they kind of conclude with, from what we can tell, your email largely relies on rumor. Yeah. And that feels like what they're going on at this point. I think Tony Petitti, if that's how you pronounce it, is completely in over his head at this point and may have to backtrack. He doesn't look great doing so either way, but I think probably taking that approach would be best for him in the long term.
Yeah, I'm sorry about my hair. I feel like like Lloyd Bridges in Airplane. I feel like I just stopped. Shouldn't have just picked a bad way to stop sniffing glue. So this is crazy, man. I feel like I just got out of prison or something. It's insane. So, but yeah, they don't have a whole lot of evidence right now. And if they did, and if that's the thing, when they were sitting down Friday and they're saying this, and then of course the evidence they provide doesn't match what they said, then you're like, okay, what the hell? Where's the beef, right? So that's where things stand right now. And until they get more evidence, and again, they are still collecting evidence. And guys, if there's a mountain of evidence out there, everything proving that Jim Harbaugh was lying or anything like that, they will deal with it. All they're asking for right now is due process, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
So are you saying they lied or embellished to Michigan initially? Because that makes their case, in my opinion, look even worse.
I'm not saying they lied. I'm saying this is what they thought they knew, and this is what they presented that they absolutely did know. And even part of what they did know didn't really show a hell of a lot. So
right.
That's what it boils down to. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the idea that, and this is not reality, but the idea that the Big Ten might have come forward, said, oh, well, we have more, we'll drop more, or, if they're holding something back. I don't think they are. And if there is more, present it, because it hasn't been presented yet. Everything that the Big Ten has on Michigan was put forth by them last week. So again, based on, I'm obviously, none of us are lawyers, but the legal response to this that Michigan is ready to mount, to me, makes sense, because I get that it's an unprecedented thing. We've never seen a team have these sorts of allegations inside of a season before, and something like that might call for unprecedented action. But at the same time, I don't know that there's a way you can expedite levying some sort of punishment without knowing the full scope and the full breadth of the situation. Because if you drop a punishment on Michigan and you wind up being wrong, or something winds up sort of exonerating them, you're opening yourself up to a whole lot of other legal issues, especially if people lose their jobs over it. So again, have said all week that I think it's in the best interest of everyone to take time to take a deep breath, craft what they know, craft their response, and you act and you go forward from there.
I think the last word on this should be, from what somebody at Michigan and somebody in the Big Ten both told me was, it sounds like Patidis is really out over his skis on this one.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Let's move on to football. Before we do, let's talk about our friends over at Prize Picks. Fantastic sponsor. Football season. We're in the stretch run here of the football season. There's no better way to enjoy watching the games than by playing daily fantasy with Prize Picks. You pick 2 to 6 players, predict if they will go more or less than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. All first-time users that deposit and use the promo code Wolverine, either at prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app, will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50, and so on. That's the promo code Wolverine. We made some picks this week, as always. I am going to go with one college basketball, one NFL. Mitchell Saxon for St. Mary's, more than 11.5 points tonight against New Mexico. And then Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers against the Bears tonight, more than 230.5 passing and rushing yards.
I've got Bryce Young rushing for more than 9.5 yards against the Bears. I don't think that the Bears are going to get to him, and he scrambles enough to pick up some yardage here and there. And then I also have Miles Sanders, Carolina backup running back, running for more than 22.5 yards against this Bears defense.
I did a bad thing and didn't prepare, so I'm doing mine in real time here. And I got a couple picks that I do like. I'm going with less than 15.5 points with USC guard Isaiah Collier and his game on Thursday night. And Giannis Antetokounmpo going more than 30 points for him. He got tossed last night against the Pistons for basically just staring at someone. So I think that you're probably looking at an FU performance from him. And I think a lot of bottled up energy tonight against the Indiana Pacers. So those are my 2 picks for this week.
Once again, all first-time users that deposit use the promo code Wolverine will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So go to prizepicks.com or download the app today. Again, use the promo code Wolverine. Let's get into Michigan against Penn State, the 4th ever top 10 matchup between these two teams, series dating back to 1993. And we'll start with the Michigan offense against what is a very, very good Penn State defense. Only one team, West Virginia, has rushed for more than 82 yards on this group, and they were good against the run last year as well. Michigan explodes for 418 yards a year ago in that game.
Just because they had their signs, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess
they were blowing them off the ball, but it was all about the signs.
Yeah, the blocks were great, and they had great movement, all because of Connor Stallions, man. He was the X factor. But so not many people saw that coming. I don't think people see that coming this time. Law of averages probably says that won't happen again, but I do feel like Michigan can do a little bit more in the run game than what they've shown. Use some wrinkles in this game. And then J.J. McCarthy really getting his first test of a very good Penn State secondary in this game, and a team with really good pass rush as well. 5 edge rushers with double-digit pressures on the year. They have 37 sacks already on the season. They'll bring the pressure with Manny Diaz. Your guys' thoughts on this Michigan offense going up against finally a formidable defense?
I'd like to see the running backs in the passing game a little bit more in this one, and maybe use their aggressiveness against them. I think they're going to have to run the ball a little bit, fellas, in order to win this football game. I'm not saying, I'm saying somewhere between 120 and 150 yards and move, get into some 2nd and 6s eventually here. J.J. McCarthy's been elite on 3rd and long, but now he's playing a good defense. That's probably a good 3rd down defense. I haven't checked, but probably a better 3rd down defense than they've played all year. So they've got to avoid those situations. So going to need to run the ball better. I do think we'll see some more wrinkles there. I do like this Michigan defense against this Penn State offense. I think it's going to be really tough for them to move the ball on the other side of things.
Yeah, with the Michigan offense, I know that JJ has been money in those 3rd and down or 3rd and long situations. I don't recall exactly what the numbers are, but I do think Saturday, for the purposes of Saturday's game, I think that those are situations you want to avoid. Namely because if you get yourself into those 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s, if things aren't going anywhere on the first 2 plays, that Penn State pass rush is going to be able to pin its ears back And we've seen Michigan struggle in pass protection at times, especially coming off the tackles, off the edges there. So I think the biggest key for Michigan on offense in this game is going to be, third down conversions in general. Get the ones that you can get, convert as many of those as possible. But I think staying ahead of schedule on first and second down is so huge, because I think the difference between 3rd and 4 and 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 in this game is going to be massive for what you're going to be able to do offensively. So, you want to see, and also I assume what Penn State's going to do is probably what everyone else has done. Like, they know that if Michigan runs the ball on them, they're probably not going to win the football game. So I think that from a play calling perspective, you're going to want to do some things that you're going to have to make them drop someone back into coverage, or lighten up that box a little bit. I think the quick game is going to be huge. It's where someone like Samaj Morgan could be an X factor in a game like this. I think that JJ McCarthy and some of those both designed quarterback runs and the way he improvises and rolls out, I think that's a major key in this game. But I do think that with the number of playmakers they have, including Donovan Edwards, who I think over the last 3 or 4 weeks has played a lot better despite not having the numbers to back it up. You get him the ball out quick, you get him going with a full head of steam, and that's going to be something that keeps these chains moving for Michigan. And you also have to finish your drives with 7 points. If you drive the ball and Penn State's getting off the field and your field goal team's coming out, that's a win for them. So for me, it's all about those third downs, staying ahead of schedule with the play calls, and also finishing your drives with 7 points.
Yeah, third down is going to be key. I do have the numbers for JJ McCarthy. 3rd and 7 plus. He's 22 of 29 with 21 first downs picked up, which is absolutely incredible, obviously. And they have had, it seems like the last few games, especially, more of those 3rd and longs. Michigan State, Purdue game as well. But the Penn State defense is very good on third down. 28.7% conversion rate. That's 8th in the country and 1st in the Big Ten. Now, talking to Nate Bauer from Blue White Illustrated, he also mentioned that really outside of Ohio State, and we could say the same thing for Michigan, and they haven't even played Ohio State yet, is you're not facing great offenses this year in the Big Ten, really the last couple of years. So it's hard to know exactly how to judge some of these numbers, but they have been very good on third down. It's an athletic defense. They're good in the red zone as well. Michigan going to have to make the most of all of its opportunities. Flipping to the other side of the ball, this Michigan defense against a Penn State offense that played probably its best game of the year last week against Maryland. But I think we've talked on this show the last couple of weeks, especially doing our picks. Maryland kind of falling off here a little bit. And Penn State's offense, the one game that you can really look at and be like, all right, this is going to be semi-similar to this weekend, is that Ohio State game. 1 of 16, you want to talk about third downs, on third down for Penn State. Probably another one of those law averages type of things. Not going to happen again, especially at home. But I think it does speak to Drew Aller, maybe not taking the leap that people thought he was going to. He's still in his first year as Penn State starter. And this team's only had 24 plays of 20-plus yards from scrimmage. That is tied for 127th in the country with Northwestern and Iowa. So they've kind of been more methodical, run the ball a little bit, haven't been as good on third down. And, we'll see how this Michigan defense stacks up. But I think I like their chances to kind of keep this low scoring if it has to be.
Yeah, I had 24-17. I think it's a dink and dunk offense, right? And when Aller was pressured against Ohio State, he didn't respond well. Granted, that was on the road. I think he'll be a little bit more comfortable. What Michigan needs to do is stop those outstanding running backs, first of all, and get them into a position where Aller has to throw the ball. So that, to me, is a key, and I think they'll do that. I don't see Penn State running on this team very much. I think this Michigan defensive line is better than the Penn State offensive line, and I think it was kind of fool's gold against Maryland, who always folds this time of year against teams with a pulse, for the most part, and is exposed as a fraud. So to me, that's the key. And I think they'll take some shots. We'll see if Josh Wallace plays for Michigan. If not, that could change some things a little bit. If you have to move Mike Sainristil to the corner and have Jaden McBurrows or somebody at nickel, then that could change some things. But I don't see this Penn State team moving up and down the field on Michigan at all.
Clayton, the key to this game, blocking and tackling.
I was going to say it. Great call.
I got you. I think Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, that's the key to everything. I mean, if those guys are able to get out and run, if they're breaking tackles, which, they do a pretty good job of doing, it might be a long day and it might be a death by, a million paper cuts type of day. But you look at Drew Aller and the numbers are fine. I mean, he's completed about 63% of his passes, only the one pick on the year. But they just seem so limited in terms of their explosiveness. I mean, you think to some of the guys they've had in the past, like Jahan Dotson and who was the guy, KJ Hamler, the kid from Detroit a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have that guy on this team. And I don't know that they have that quarterback. Drew Aller's tremendous. He's got a good arm. He's played some really good football this year. But, I really feel like if Michigan is able to keep them from racking up those big plays, those explosive plays, and the tight ends will be involved in that as well. I feel pretty good about them limiting the damage of this Penn State offense because I just don't know that they have the playmakers that can offset what Michigan's going to bring to them defensively. So another thing for me, you look at the offensive line, Olu Fashanu is going to be maybe a top 5 pick in this spring's NFL draft. He's an outstanding left tackle. But the middle of that Penn State offensive line does not do a whole lot for me. So guys like Chris Jenkins and Mason Graham and Kenneth Graham, those are, if you're looking for a position group this week to spotlight, this is, you never use the term legacy game, but if those guys who we think they are, then Michigan has an advantage here.
Yeah, and talking to Nate Bauer as well from Blue White Illustrated, he said that they've been susceptible to twists and stunts, and I think that's something Michigan's done a great job of lately, even dropping some defensive linemen into coverage at times and then bringing a Mike Barrett who had 5 pressures on the quarterback last week. But yeah, the tight ends will be very involved. Keandre Lambert-Smith is 3rd in the Big Ten in receptions and yards, receiving as well. And then Drew Aller, if we want to continue the third down theme, he's completing only 48.6% of his passes on third down. When it's 3rd and 7 plus, that's 45.9% of his passes, which ranks 121st in the country among quarterbacks with 15 plus attempts. So in a lot of that came against Ohio State, obviously. But again, that's kind of that measuring stick game that they have played, that Michigan has the advantage of being able to watch them play a similar type of opponent. And they didn't fare all that well on offense, scoring 12 points. One of the scores was late in the game. But yeah, this seems like the receiving core has kind of held them back. So they're going to have to run the ball, I think, on this Michigan defense to have some success. And we haven't seen many teams do that outside of just a couple stretches throughout the year. Minnesota a little bit, in a couple other instances. Let's get to our predictions for this game, and starting with offensive standout of the week. I'm going to go with Roman Wilson. A lot of this is going to have to do with J.J. McCarthy kind of being the key here, but 5 career games on grass for him, 12 catches, 250 yards from scrimmage, 4 total touchdowns. I looked up the stat, so I figured I might as well use it, and I think Roman Wilson's been key to a lot of those big downs too. When Michigan's got to have it, he's been on the receiving end of a lot of those big plays.
I like Colston Loveland in this game. I think he's due for a big one. I think that he is going to be a matchup problem for Penn State, and I think that's JJ's kind of safety net. I think Colston Loveland's going to have a really big day and maybe a touchdown on Saturday.
I was going to go with Colston Loveland. I had everything worked out. So I'll stay in that room and say A.J. Barner.
Okay.
I think that both of those guys are going to be critical in this game, especially when we talk about those third downs, those 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 5s, getting those guys over the middle or the guys leaking out towards the sideline. Those two, the safety valve guys, I think are the ones that could have the most to gain by whatever Penn State's game plan is.
No one took the layup. No one took JJ. And I also want to mention as well, Roman, 2 of those 4 touchdowns on grass in his career came in that 2021 game against Penn State. There had a absolutely monster game with a couple scores. Defensively, I'm going to go with Mike Barrett from the linebacker position. Feel like he's quietly playing as good at linebacker as anybody in the Big Ten right now, including some of Penn State's guys. Just love what they're doing with his speed, getting him on blitzes, using him in those situations where they got to, he comes up the middle and a D-tackle twists around the end. So I think Mike Barrett is going to have a big game and potentially, put some pressure on Drew Aller.
I think Mason Graham's going to have a game against that interior line of Penn State. I think he's going to have to draw some added attention. Some of those guys are. I think this is one of those games where he can really cause a lot of trouble, both in the run game and maybe get into the quarterback a little like he did against Minnesota. So he's my guy.
Chris and I are on the same page today. I don't know if that's inspiring or
well, you're a smart
scary.
guy. You're a smart
but
guy.
Yeah, and handsome.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to stick with the defensive line and go with Chris Jenkins. I know that Michigan fans have kind of, oh, what was all the talk? He's a freak and where's all the numbers? That's not what his job is. This is a dirty work game. This is going to be one of those Big Ten bar fights. And I think that Chris Jenkins and what he brings to the table will be a determining factor in this game.
Yeah, and a lot of the double teams that were on Mozzie Smith last year are going Chris Jenkins' way this season. Final score predictions. I got 34-20. I think Michigan's going to be able to put together kind of the drives that they need. Penn State, I think, will have some success offensively, more so than they did against Ohio State, this game being at home and all that. But I do like Michigan to pull away and win semi-comfortable when it's all said and done.
Let me guess. Did Bauer pick like 24-21 Penn State or what?
24-20 Michigan.
Oh, wow. I'm proud of it. That's a big step.
And I looked at their staff predictions over at Blue White Illustrated. All but one, I think they had 5 or 6 guys pick, all but one had Michigan winning the game.
Interesting. Well, Michigan's a better football team, and I think Michigan's going to win 24-17. I think it's going to be a game like, I think it was 2006 when they went down there, won 17-10. Alan Branch did some damage, and it was 17-3 late in the game, and Penn State scored with a couple minutes to go. I think Michigan will be up something like 24-10, and then maybe Penn State scores late. Michigan hangs on to win.
I've got Michigan 28, Penn State 16. I think that Penn State will find ways to move the football, but they'll have to kick some field goals, and those will be huge wins for Michigan if that's going to be the case. So 28-16, again, I don't know what that looks like in terms of how that plays out over 4 quarters, but I do feel like I think this Michigan team is at least 10 points better than Penn State, but they have to play well too. It's not a slam dunk. It's not a layup. It's still a coin flip game, but like I said earlier in the show, if this team is who I think they are, then the noise from the last few weeks will not affect them. This matchup will not affect them. The road environment will not affect them. So I expect them to go out and handle their business accordingly.
How about John Borton with 34-8 Michigan on our staff predictions? He's been talking all week about this could be Judgment Day Part 2, referring back to the 1997 game where Michigan had to go out and prove it, and they did, obviously, and they go on to win the national championship. Check out our full staff predictions article over at thewolverine.com. But we will move on, finish off with picking 3 games from around the country, starting with Ole Miss at Georgia. Georgia's a 10.5-point favorite, over-under 58.5. Some stuff coming out today with Lane Kiffin. Kind of makes me want to take Georgia here, minus 10.5 in this game. Wait,
what came out with Wayne? What did I miss?
The audio of his meeting with the player who this has been out for a while, but the audio just came out where he kicked the guy off the team for something to do with mental health or something like that.
God. All right, whatever. I think Georgia's going to roll anyway. I think Lane Kiffin is extremely overrated, and I think Georgia's starting to play good football. So I like Georgia to cover that. I think that Georgia's going to win by 3 scores.
Audio or no audio, it doesn't matter. Georgia has a similar vibe to Michigan from last year, where I feel like they get up for the biggest games on their schedule, and sometimes the other teams hang around a bit, but ultimately water finds its level. I think Georgia rolls in this game as well.
2 rivals taking the field against each other, Michigan State at Ohio State. Buckeyes 31.5-point favorites at home, over under 47.5. MSU, the disrespect, 31.5-point underdogs. I got the Spartans. That's a big number for me for Michigan State or for Ohio State to cover at this point. Michigan State riding high off of a controversial win last week, but I'll take the Spartans.
Controversial win. I didn't
according to Matt Rule.
Yeah. Okay. Oh wow. I'll take. I think Michigan State's laying in the weeds. I think they play their best game of the year here down in Columbus and only lose by 30.
I'm with Clayton. I'm going to go with Michigan State. It's too many points. This Ohio State team, I just don't think they're about that life. I don't think they have the gear that some of these vintage Ohio State teams have had. So I do think that Michigan State will quote unquote fight. And even if it's a backdoor cover, something tells me that Michigan State, now that they finally got that first win under Harlan Barnett. Now you just play loose and see what happens. But
give him the contract, Alan Haller. Give him the contract. What are you waiting for?
They'll still get pants on NBC like they did a few weeks ago. So.
Yeah, I will say I don't know that you need that extra gear to beat Michigan State that poorly, but I am with you. I do agree in terms of our pick. USC at Oregon, two teams that will be on Michigan's schedule or maybe not Oregon next year, but in the Big Ten next season. Oregon, a 15-point favorite at home, over under 74.5. Tells me it's going to be a fun game to watch. I got Oregon. I think they're one of the best 4 teams in the country. I think they're a national title contender. I think they're going to get into that playoff, and I think they will roll USC on Saturday.
I think it'll be a high-scoring game, something like 45-35. I think USC stays within the 15, but Oregon wins handily.
I think the wheels are about to fall off at USC. I'm going Oregon big. I think that Oregon, if their head coach didn't coach the game against Washington like he was trying to twist the knife against his little brother playing Madden, they probably win that game too. But yeah, I like Oregon a lot and do think that they are one of the 4 best teams in the country. So give me Oregon.
USC's first game with the new D coordinator, Sean Nua, will be coordinating the USC defense in that game.
It's a big step.
It is a big step.
All due respect to Sean, I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to change my pick. So, I like Oregon to cover, and I love Sean.
What respect did you just give him with that? You said all due respect.
All due respect. All due respect.
Well, that
means I can say whatever the hell I want.
We love Sean Nua, by the way. He was such a delight.
He was such
a delight to cover and be around.
Right, but I mean, as a defensive coordinator, I don't know that he's ready for that step yet, and maybe eventually he will be. But I think they're going to roll him.
Counter argument can't get much worse than what they were defensively.
Yeah, well, they can get 7 points worse and cover, or not cover.
Well, there you go. Yep. That is going to be our show for this week. Enjoy the game, everybody, on Saturday, as well as follow along over at thewolverine.com, because could be some news coming down, obviously, about the Jim Harbaugh situation. We will have you covered with the latest. We got a big game special going on right now, 50% off your annual subscription, and you can get 1 month if you go the monthly route for just $1. So head over to thewolverine.com. Make sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and we will see everyone next time.